Hi everybody, this is Deb from the Shop of Threads. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing some German Bavarian authentic German Pretzel Stix. So what we're going to do is do a two-part series. The first part is going to be all the ingredients you're going to need and kind of how to prep to get ready to actually the mixing process, the rolling, the rising, the dipping to the baking. So like I said, we're going to do a two-part series. This will be the first part. And yeah, so let's get started. All right, now typically I don't usually use, and every time I make the authentic German pretzels, I don't usually use sourdough starter. I find that when I do, it makes a better a little more tastier pretzel bread. Okay, so here's my starter. I've named him Herman. I've had him now for over 20 years. And you say 20 years, oh my gosh, yes, 20 years. When you do a starter and you keep them in the refrigerator, you feed them. You're supposed to feed them every week. Sometimes I go 2-3 weeks. I hate to admit that, but I do. He's starving by that point because what happens is when you put fresh flour and fresh water in, when you're feeding the starter, you have to dump out a cup of it, put another cup in. So when you're feeding it, those yeast, the yeast that's in the starter are starving for the flour and the water. And so they start eating at the new flour water solution. And as you can see here, the bubbles that, and I don't know if you can really see too well. Let me see if I can tip you on down. There's little bubbles that are forming in there. That means the yeast is active. Okay. So I only use, I'm sorry about that. I had a puppy that decided to go barking his head off. So anyway, back to the yeast, the starter. I only use about 2 tablespoons of the starter in my batch of dough that I am making for the pretzel, whether it be pretzel products, actually, whether it be pretzel buns, pretzel rolls, or rolled out pretzels. Because I don't like it to be, my dough to be too heavy. I just want a little kick to the taste of my pretzel. So anyway, this is Herman, the pretzels, or the dough starter. So when I take it out of the fridge, I just mix it up when I'm going to feed it. And again, I take out about a cup of the current starter and then put in another cup of water along with another cup of flour. Now, because I use bread flour, that's what the flour I'm going to be putting in the starter. Now, if you want to jump start your starter, put a little sugar in there, just a teensy bit of yeast, and you should see it starting to bubble up. I think I kept it on the counter for 3 days and just kept an eye on it, covered. Of course, you don't want it drying out. And then I put it in the refrigerator. And every time I feed it now, I just stick it in the fridge right away, and it works. So anyway, this has been out for about maybe 40 minutes, and you can see the bubbles are starting, which means the yeast is coming very active in here. But I'm going to feed it today and take 2 tablespoons out and then put it back in the fridge. So that's what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take 2 tablespoons of the starter out so that I have that for my dough when I am mixing there. So take out 2. Yeah, there is nothing like sourdough with a starter that's this old. And you can use this in any of your recipes. You really could. Any bread recipes. You can even use this if you're making cinnamon rolls. Some of the starter in there. It's awesome. And you can make it in pancakes. It just gives such a good flavor. Okay, so here's my 2 tablespoons. And now I'm going to take you on over. We'll feed him in a little bit. We'll take you on over to the other side. Okay, here are all the items you will need to make a very good pretzel dough. Some of these items, you're going to have to go through special companies to get them. You cannot buy the product on the shelf in your grocery store. So you can order online. And I do believe that even the solution I'm going to be dipping these pretzel sticks in, which is a caustic solution, sodium hydroxide, I do believe you can purchase that online through the company that I get it through. And I'll show you that in a moment. But that and some of the other ingredients, and you'll see the container, and I'll hopefully put links there, get to putting links on the video page so that you can see what the make of the product I'm using, what the make is. And, you know, who makes it, shall I say. All right, to start with, one of the most important things you're going to need, and if you don't have an electric mixer, no big deal. You can knead it by hand, and we'll do another video on kneading by hand. I just don't have the time today, to be quite honest with you, being I'm also in the embroidery business and doing other things. So I'm going to be using my mixer today. This is the KitchenAid Professional 600. So that's what we'll be using. That's one of the items. And again, you can do this by hand. If you know how to knead bread, no big deal. You're going to knead it until you feel that the dough is nice and supple and soft and, you know, has a nice stretch to it. But that's one item. Here's our starter that I just went and put in this little cup here. That's 2 tablespoons. You're going to need, obviously, measuring spoons and measuring cups. You're going to need, if you have some type of a cooking plastic bag that's large enough to put over a cookie tray and it's food safe, then I would say use that. I don't have any right now. So what I do is I'll take a Ziploc bag and I'll cut along here, or tear, whatever way is convenient for you, to open it up. Okay, and I use these as my plastic to cover my dough after I get done making it, because you're going to want to not let the air get at it. Okay, so I've got 3 of these Ziploc bags I'll open up to use for the rising of the dough and so on and so forth. You're going to need bread flour. Okay, here's your bread flour. Let me put that out of the way of the starter. I use King Arthur unbleached bread flour. Okay, it is awesome. What you want is you want the actual protein content in the bread flour to be at 12.7 or a little higher, even if you can. If not, 12.7 is a great bread dough when you're making it, because pretzels have kind of a chew to them, and the higher the protein, the more the chew is going to be in the bread. Now, if you don't want such a chewy, you know, pretzel bun or pretzel stick, you can mix bread flour with all-purpose flour and get more of just a softer dough. I like the German chewy pretzel, so that's what we're using is King Arthur, and many of your grocery stores do carry this. So King Arthur 12.7% unbleached bread flour. Okay. Let me put it up a little closer for you. Then also what you're going to need, I'm going to give you the items you definitely need. This is sugar in here, but I'm only going to be using 2 tablespoons of sugar. So we'll show you as we're moving along into the mixing bowl, but I just wanted to go over the products that I'm using right now. We're going to need butter. Put my finger on the brand here. This is salted butter. So you're going to use you can use between 2 and 3 tablespoons. You want a little more flavor, do 3. 2 is efficient. I'm going 3. Okay, salted butter. Another thing that you will definitely need for a good pretzel, okay? I buy mine, this is, what do you call it? Dried milk. You can get it at the grocery store, dried milk. It's better to go on a website that has baking things and get your dried milk through there. This isn't super necessary, but I do use 2 tablespoons of that. Now, bear in mind, this has a little sugar in it, so you don't want to put a lot of regular sugar and dried milk in because this does have, like I said, a little tiny sugar, because you don't want your pretzels to get too dark in the oven, because sugar will make things turn quicker as far as color. All right, so that, you're going to need Pam spray or some type of cooking spray. I use Pam because that's my favorite. You're also going to need, I use sea salt. If you don't have sea salt, then regular table salt will do. But I use sea salt. I find that gave it more flavor as well. Okay, and we're going to only use a teaspoon of that. One important major thing I am missing here, but that's okay. We'll get it in a moment. So the next thing is, I love using dough conditioner. Okay, I use a teaspoon of this into a batch of dough that I am making, and I'm telling you, it just makes the dough so nice, very workable, and it just makes a difference. Okay, this I purchased through Prepared Pantry. Online you can get it. Okay, I'm not sure exactly. I thought it was $7 for a container, but you're only using a teaspoon of it. It's not necessary. It's not like you have to have this to make a good pretzel, but I find it definitely helps. Okay, so you got that. Another thing, if you can, and this I got online through Hoosier Mill Farm. It's premium dry malt diastatic. Okay, you want to make sure you get that, and it's a powder. So that's what you're going to get, and you can get them, I think, in smaller containers. But I do like to put in my dough along with the other ingredients that I just showed you. I like to put in about a tablespoon of this, just to help the yeast feed better. Okay, and I'm not going to get too much into the science part of everything. We also will need, sorry, just one moment. You're also going to need active dry yeast. Okay, it's just the regular. And I use 2 1/4 teaspoons. I buy the jar because if you're going to make bread from quite often, your best bet is to get a larger. They come in packages too. You can get like the fresh yeast, and you can use those, and that's even better. But because I'm not making bread like I used to, and I'm at home now, so when we were in a commercial bakery, of course I was buying the big, huge. But I'm not. I'm doing this occasionally at home just for our consumption. So again, you're going to get the active dry yeast, and you're going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons in every batch that you're making. Now the flour, you're going to be using about 3.5 to 4 cups. The most important thing to make your pretzels taste authentic is this. It is sodium hydroxide, and I got mine through AAA Chemical Company, and I buy it by the case, especially when I was doing pretzels for business. I mean, we were buying cases of it, but this is what you're going to need to have it taste like an authentic German Bavarian pretzel. You can use you can use baking soda. That's fine, but you'll never get the flavor of a German pretzel using baking soda. No comparison. None. Zero. So, anyway, this is what you use when you are making an authentic German pretzel. It's very caustic, so fair warning. I looked like I was a scientist when I first made my very first batch of pretzels. I wore gloves, goggles, my hair was back. It was scary for me at first. As you move along, you really learn. Always wear eye goggles. You don't want nothing splashing up in your eye, because if this splashes in your eye, it will go and eat your retina right away. So I don't wear gloves anymore. If you get it on your fingers, you just go rinse your fingers off. But your eyes are more of a sensitive area, so definitely wear some kind of eye protection, whether it be a pair of clear glasses or goggles. I don't wear goggles. I wear just my glasses. I have glasses on. Anyway, so that's what you'll need to make an authentic pretzel. And so what we'll do is get started shortly, and I will show you the amounts that you're going to need to put in to the mixer. As I said, we'll do one by hand down the road. Right now, I'm just doing a batch by mixer. All right, we will get started in a moment. Okay, I did leave out a couple things that I wanted to share. When you're using water, use some type of spring or distilled water. Don't use it out of your tap because you don't know what chemicals are still left in your tap water unless you have a super duper filter system on there. And that does affect bread baking when you're using tap water and it has its own, you got chlorine in there. So I always buy the bottled water to make sure that I don't have that issue, and it makes, the bread better too. So you're going to use that, and then you're also going to make sure you use a stainless steel baking sheet, okay? You don't want aluminum because if that caustic solution hits the aluminum, it gets a chemical reaction and it'll kind of turn black and it can even smoke a little bit. I don't want to scare you guys because really this is really not a scary situation, but it's reality that you are working with a chemical. So you got to be a little more cautious. So anyway, you're going to use a stainless steel baking sheet, and you're going to also use a stainless steel, and I'm going to take you on over just a second. Okay, so you're going to use a stainless steel, you can use this is a frying pan, but it's a very deep one. I don't like to go too deep in my pans. And again, it's stainless steel. And the reason why I don't is when I'm turning them, it makes it easier for me. You can use a pot. If you have a pot, that's fine. If it makes it easier for you to use a pot, I'd say have at it. So you're going to use that, and you're going to put your solution into cold water. This is cold water. I did 10 cups of cold water in this size pan. And then when I'm going to be putting the solution into the cold water, I will show you how many tablespoons go in according to using 10 cups of cold water. Okay, we'll do that shortly too. And then the other thing is you want is stainless steel draining rack right here. So stainless steel, everything should be stainless steel. And including if you're going to do, scooping out your pretzel out of the water, you can use plastic or Teflon, not plastic. You can use something like this or stainless steel, okay? Because I am making pretzel sticks, I'm just going to use a regular spatula to remove them. I'll use 2 spatulas together. It's an art that I learned while I was making them. So what I do is I go like this and I scoop it out of and then I hold it on the side, put it here like this. But anyway, we'll be using those. And then I will get started now showing you how to mix. Okay, real quickly, I just thought I'd show you some of the bread that I made this morning prior to deciding I was going to do the pretzel sticks. So this is a total different video for another time, but I just made a couple of loaves of bread. So I just wanted to show you French bread. Getting ready to stick it in the oven shortly. And there's some cheating ways of doing this bread, and I'll show you, like I said, in another video, if you're not up to making it from scratch. Okay, and we'll be back. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start out putting our yeast in some warm water that I heated up in the microwave for 30 seconds. That's 1.5 cups of your bottled water, whatever one you choose. Spring water, distilled water, that doesn't matter as long as the impurities are out of the water, that there's no hard chemicals. So here is 1.5 cups in the microwave for 30 seconds. I'm going to put my active dry yeast into the water, and I'm using 2¼ teaspoons leveled on the measuring spoon. There's 1, 2, and I know what 1/4 is in here, so I'm just doing the 1/4 on my own, but you can use your 1/4 teaspoon. So what we're going to do is we're going to let that yeast activate. The best way to see if your yeast is good, because we all know sometimes you have yeast, you put it in the fridge, you take it out, and you realize, oh, the expiration has come to an end, and the yeast might not be good. So what you want to do, and I take sugar, and I just take enough to put on my fingers. I apologize, I have to get the lid off of the container here, so give me a moment. What kind of silly lid is this? Oh, I see. Oh, that's so weird. I can't get the lid off the sugar. I have never seen that before. Hang on one second. I apologize. Here I thought I had everything already, and I didn't. Okay. So you're going to just take a sprinkle of the sugar and put it in with your yeast and your water. And you can just stir that up lightly and let it sit for 5 minutes. Okay? So in that 5 minutes, while it's sitting and waiting to activate, I just go along the top right here and make sure you get all the yeast down in the water. So while that's sitting for the 5 minutes, and you'll see when it starts to activate, because you'll get a foaminess at the top, and it'll get very, very cloudy. Okay? So there's that. What we're going to do is start putting our flour into the mixer. Okay? So we're going to put all the dry ingredients into the mixer. Except the only thing we're going to leave out till the end is the butter. But we're going to put all the dry ingredients in. I start out putting about 3½ cups of flour into the mixer bowl. Okay? And when I say 3½, make sure they're level. They're not, you're not getting super high. You're leveling it off. So there's 1, 2, actually do 3. Don't do 3½. I apologize. It's been a while since I made it, so do 3 cups. You're going to reserve 1 cup off to the side just to have, once you get going, to see if you need, how much you need. Typically, it'll be 3½ to 4 cups of flour. But I always put 3 in and reserve the 4th cup and then slowly add until I get to my consistency. Okay, so there's that. 1, 2, 3, right? Oh Lord, lost my, 3. All right. So, you're going to hear my oven go off in about 15 minutes because I stuck 2 loaves of French bread in the oven while I was mixing up my pretzel dough. So my yeast looks like it's already starting to activate a little bit. You can start to see it's getting a little foamy. So we know that's good. The yeast is good. So anyway, we've got our flour in here. So we're going to take all the ingredients that we've already used and we're going to put them off to the side. Okay. Next, we're going to take and put in, since I've got the sugar here, we're going to put into the bowl 1 tablespoon of sugar. Okay, so you got 1 tablespoon of sugar. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dried milk that I have. Now again, this is an option. You do not have to use dried milk. But if you are going to use it, I only stick between 1 and 2 tablespoons in there just for a little extra flavor. I'm not looking to make it a super soft dough. because milk will soften a dough. So I think I'm just going to put in 1 tablespoon right now. Okay, 1 tablespoon. Optional. Again, dried milk is optional. That is not necessary to make a good dough. It makes a better dough. Your sugar is not even it's optional, but I'd say definitely put the sugar in, at least a tablespoon. So that's that. Now you've got your dough conditioner. Dough conditioner, you're going to use a teaspoon of that. Again, if it's a little higher than being level, that's fine too. Put a teaspoon of that in there and get that out of the way. Okay. We already did the yeast. We're going to take that out of there. And what else are we gonna? We're going to put in next. This is an option too. It's not that you need it. It is optional. Again, it just makes your dough, your flavor of your pretzel a little bit better. So dry malt, we're going to put that in there. And I'm going to put in, I think I'm going to put in a tablespoon of that. I don't always use this, but if I have some on hand, I'll put a tablespoon in there. It just makes it a better, it just helps the rising of your yeast. Okay, so we've got that in there. We are going to be putting salt in there too. So I use sea salt rather than table salt, but if you don't have sea salt, table salt will do. We only want 1 teaspoon, and don't pour it over the bowl. Big mistake if you do, because funnier things can happen, and you may end up with a lot more salt in there than you cared, and that's not good. So 1 teaspoon of salt goes in there. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to bring all the dry ingredients together. Okay, now you can see, I want to go back to my water and yeast, and you can see it's foamy. Okay, let me show you this way. You can see there's a cap of foam. That means that yeast is really good and it likes sugar. Yeast loves sugar. It feeds off of it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start just mixing the dry ingredients. You're not going to be able to... on my mixer, I've got the dough paddle on there because you're really not going to be able to mix it with the dough paddle. So you're just going to need some kind of either fork or a beater like this. Okay. Just go in, kind of mix it around. You want to do a little pre-mix prior to putting the liquid ingredients in, because, why make it harder to mix properly when you can do the dry ingredients together. Okay. Not only that, but if you've got your salt, salt will kill yeast. So always don't just pour salt into the yeast water. That is a definite no-no. So when you mix it around like this, it isn't going to instantly kill the yeast. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in my yeast. Okay? I'm going to turn on the mixer to 1. Oh, it'd be nice if it would turn on. How odd is that? Of course this has to happen, right? There we go. I don't know why it didn't start up right away. Okay, so we are going to slowly pour that in. Make sure you get all that good yeast out of the bottom of here. Okay. We'll just set this over to the back here where we already... Okay, and it's just going to slowly mix. You might have to help it along a little bit. I've got a spatula. So what I'm going to do is turn it off and scrape the sides to get the dry away from the sides. And then turn it back on to 1. So once it starts really incorporating, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it on up to 2. Right now, if I turned it up to 2, you take more of a chance. I'll show you. 2 would still be okay. You go 3, 4, or even higher. Sometimes you'll flip that flour right out of the bowl. You don't want to do that. So 2 would even work. Okay, that's 1, 2. Now that I already started incorporating, that works fine. So we're going to go ahead and now put in my starter, okay? Again, this is not necessary. If you don't have starter, don't worry about it. It's just I do, and it makes the pretzel even better. So I'm going to put my starter in. You don't want to put a lot of starter in because it makes the dough a little heavier. So I put enough in to give it the flavor that it needs. So we got everything in there that we need thus far. The only thing we don't have in there is the rest of the remaining flour. And I can see we're going to need some. And then butter. Butter you're going to use between 2 and 3 tablespoons. I'm going to go ahead and put in maybe 2.5. And it's optional. If you want 2 or 3, that's the max that you want to put in there. Okay? You can also use olive oil, which we occasionally will do that if we're on a more healthier kind of thing where we're wanting, bread, but I'll just put olive oil in there. And that still gives it very, very good flavor. Okay? I'll turn that off for a minute and I'm going to scrape the sides. You want to try to get that flour a little more incorporated. Okay. Sometimes I'll turn it up if I feel that I'm not going to make the flour fly out of the bowl, just to get it really going, to incorporate it better. Just keep an eye on it and you can see, whether or not that dough is picking up that flour, and it's not going to make the flour fly out. So I've got it on high speed right now. And I know that the flour's not flying out of there at this point. And I'll turn it back down as soon as I can see that it's okay. Turn it back down a little bit. See, it is picking up the flour little by little off the sides of the mixer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in about a half a cup of this flour. Turn it down so you don't want the flour flying out. I'm going to do about a half a cup. So what I'm going to do is continue to incorporate this to see where the dough is at. I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you where it'll be after what I just put in. But it probably will have to go another 2 minutes, and I don't want to keep you on the video for the 2 minutes just watching the mixer go. So I will be right back. Okay, the last of the flour that I had added in is picking up whatever is around the sides of the bowl, as you can see. And it's kind of on the shaggy side right now. They call it shaggy. But I like what I'm seeing. So that's why I say never put all your flour in all together. because you want to make sure that you're not putting too much in, and then you got to have to add more water, and it's a battle, battle, battle. So now it looks like I can put in my butter, and then we may have to add more flour after that, because again, you're ending up putting in more of a liquid form instead of dry ingredients. You may need a little more flour. So we shall see. I'm putting in my 3 tablespoons of my butter. You know, I'm not measuring like we really would do in a bakery. Okay, in a bakery, you're going to measure grams. You're going to have a scale. I did all that. You're at home right now, so it's safe to say that if you follow what I'm telling you on how to put things in, it's safe to say that you should have absolutely no problem reaching the perfect consistency to be able to make a good pretzel, whether it be a pretzel roll stick or regular pretzel. Okay, so now and that's softened butter. Now I'm going to incorporate my softened butter. It's going to be really slick and kind of, the dough is not going to grab onto it right away, and that's okay. What I'm going to show you when that happens is just incorporating the butter nicely now. Got some stuck on the side of your bowl there, and that's okay too. I'm going to stop it a second. I want to get that butter down and get that into the dough. And what I'll do, a little trick to that, is to take flour and lightly put it on the butter. The butter that wasn't adhering to the rest of the dough. And now you'll see the dough will pick it up. Okay. There it goes. It's incorporating all of it. Perfect. Got it all. As you can see, got all of the butter. All right, now we're going to turn it down. So what we're going to do is we're going to let it go for about another 4 minutes. Let me feel the dough right now, how sticky it is. Actually, it's feeling pretty good. We have a rainy day here today. So when you're making bread, when it rains, that's moisture in the air. You might have to add more flour on a day where you've got a little more humidity, which is moisture, and the flour will suck that water up. So anyway, it's feeling pretty good, but I can tell the way it's kind of sticking on the bottom when I turn it back on. And I'll show you shortly. If you see it sticking like on the bottom and it's not pulling up, really good, what it is it's still a little too wet. So you just add a little bit of flour in at a time, and that'll start tightening it up. But you don't want it to be too much, because then you got a dry dough. Okay? So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put a little bit of flour in, and it equal to about maybe a tablespoon and a half. And I'm going to let that go for 4 minutes, and then I will come back and check it to see. Okay, while the dough is mixing over there, I just thought I'd bring you over my French bread rolls. Just came out of the oven, so I thought I'd show you what they look like and share that with you. And we'll, like I said, we'll do this another day where we make French rolls together. Okay, just came over, shut the mixer off, and checking the dough to see if it's super sticky or if it's pretty good. And quite frankly, it's pretty good. If I can do this, it's still sticking to my fingers a little bit. Not bad, it's close, but I do need a little more flour because I want it to not stick to my finger like that. Like little pieces like this. So we're gonna let it go. I'm gonna put in probably another tablespoon or 2 of the flour, and then let it mix again and check it one more time. It's been about 4 minutes mixing, so I'm gonna let it go. Total time should be anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes in the mixer. You're doing it by hand, it's longer. But in the mixer, 7 to 10 minutes, okay? And it is still sticking to the bottom of the bowl a little bit. Not bad, but like I said, a little more flour. And I think that might do it, okay? Like I said, better to add a little bit of flour at a time than too much, and then you're playing with water. And when you do that, adding water to dough doesn't mix as easily, so. Okay, now I'm going to turn it up to 2, and I'm going to let it go for another 3 to 4 minutes, and then check it again. And it looks like this could be the right consistency. And then you want it to be very smooth when it's done mixing, like very smooth. And you can stretch it, and if you do the stretch test, it's called a pain test to see if you can see through it. That means your gluten has developed. Okay. So let me go ahead and mix it up again for a short period of time. Okay, I think the dough has finally reached its consistency as to what I'm looking for, which is gonna be not a dough that's gonna stick to my fingers 100%. If you can take the dough and do this, okay, you might get little tiny bitty pieces here and there. But if you can do this and it's not, you know, totally sticking to your fingers, like coming off, and it's gooey and it's smooth, this is what you want to see in dough. Okay, I don't care what you're making, whether it be pretzels or regular bread, what have you. This is the consistency you're looking for. And the best way to describe it, and it was told to me like this years ago, is when you touch the dough, it should feel like Post-it sticky paper. You know, the little Post-it things, just like that. See, I had my hand underneath here for a few seconds, well, 30 seconds. And if I can flip it over and it's not coming off on my hand, that's a good dough. You don't want it dry, because boy, that'll be some dry bread. This is perfect consistency. Now, we used all the flour except for about 1/4 cup. That's what it looks like is left of the 4 cups that I thought I was going to maybe need, due to the fact today is very humid in Chicago. So we didn't quite need what I thought, but that's okay. So what we're going to do, and you can keep it in this bowl here and put a plastic over it, spray the bowl if you don't want to dirty up another. But I like my little, I buy these out. I know it's got like little demarcations in there, but it's clean, trust me. I buy these at Walmart with the lids, and these are perfect for me to do my rising of my dough. Perfect for that. This I'm going to use leftover to flour my board when I do my rollout. So we'll be using that. That's not waste. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my spray. You know, I use Pam, so I'm going to spray the inside of the bowl, okay? And I'm going to put this dough ball inside. This is the side that you want down, okay? Some say put it up. I say put it down. It all depends on what you want to do. I don't find it to be any different, to be honest with you. Anyway, and it's fairly smooth. We're going to put that inside of the bowl after it's been sprayed as such. And I'm going to kind of push down just a little bit. And we're going to put a lid on it. Okay, and I'm going to wait for it to rise double the size. Okay, I want it double the size. So we're looking at about, depending how warm your house is, because dough to rise loves heat, you know, so you want to keep it in a warmer spot. So I put the lid on it, and that's probably going to fly off once the gases build up, and that's fine. You'll hear a little pop. But I like to keep this in a warm spot on my stove. If the stove isn't on, obviously, then it's too warm. So I'm just going to put it over here, okay, on my stove, and I'm going to let it sit there for about an hour. But in the meantime, we're going to just do a couple little things to get prepped for when we dip our pretzel sticks. But I'm going to make this, like I said, this is a 2-part video because we just have to let the dough, after it sits for an hour, we have to, what they call, punch it down and then shape it. So it'll be in the next video. But what I'm going to do in the interim of that is just prep my water with the sodium hydroxide. Please wear gloves. I'm very accustomed to working with this. It doesn't mean an accident cannot happen. I'm talking about when you're getting the pretzels, you know, dipped. Wear gloves. If you got sensitive skin, it could irritate your skin. It's not going to do any super damage. But for sure, wear some kind of eye protection. So we're going to put in here 3 to 4 tablespoons in 10 cups of water. And it has to be cold water. You never want to put this in hot water to start. We're going to do, we're going to do 3. Like I said, it's been so long since I've actually made pretzels. But like I said, if you want, you might have to think a little bit. But once you've made them, trust me, you don't forget. It's like riding a bicycle. I don't know if you can see inside here. Yeah, you can a little bit. It's like a little ice forming thing. It's the chemical meeting the water. And that's okay. It's dissolving. Lightly stir. Don't get crazy stirring. You don't want it splashing everywhere. It's caustic. Okay. That's completely stirred in. And you're going to let it sit on the stove until you're ready to do your dipping. So like I said, while your dough is rising for the hour, these are the little things you can do to prep. So I got that. It's all done. Again, make sure you have a rack of some sort. If this is dripping, you want to make sure it's going to drip into your stainless steel pan / rack. Okay, so we're done with that. Let me go ahead and get this over here. Okay. All right. So we will be back. This is going to be part 1 of the 2 videos I'm doing. To finish up, the pretzels will be on the next one. Okay, see you shortly.